Hello and welcome to another episode of All Politics is Local. I'm your host, John Tian. All Politics is Local is a production of the Greater Blackstone Valley Democrats. For more information about the Greater Blackstone Valley Dems, feel free to visit our website at www.gbvdems.org. We've got another great show planned for you tonight. With me in the studio is Steve Abraham, who's currently the Register of Probate for Worcester County and running for re-election this fall. Steve, welcome to the show.
John, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for taking time out of the campaign trail, or not really time out, but making All Politics is Local a stop on the campaign trail.
Someone famous said that once.
Someone famous did indeed, and that's why I hat tip to Tip O'Neill.
Right,
That's the reason for
a tip to tip.
From
yep.
tip to tip, exactly. Tip O'Neill was one of my heroes when I was growing up. I paid a lot of attention to politics back in the 70s. Really, I started with the Watergate hearings.
You don't even look that old. I can't believe that.
Yeah. Back in the 70s, I used to rush home from school to watch Sam Ervin and the Watergate Committee doing their hearings. Yeah, that was high entertainment for me in those days.
It was high entertainment for a lot of people.
A lot of people, yes, yeah. So
and not so much fun for others.
Yeah,
right?
there were some people who didn't appreciate it.
Exactly.
You're right.
Exactly.
But I had a ball. I loved every minute of it, and I couldn't get enough. And I've been a political junkie ever since.
Well, that's great.
So, yeah,
that's great.
So tell us a little bit about running for Register of Probate. What's it all about? What does the office do?
Well, one of my bad habits I've realized is sometimes I think I know what you're going to say before you finish.
Okay.
And so if I interrupt you, you just let me know. I'm sure that you will, because you're the pro.
No problem.
Let me say this to you. I've been the Register of Probate for the Worcester Probate and Family Court for the last 11 plus years. I'm in my 12th year. And the Probate and Family Court, like the Superior Court, like the District Court, and like the Housing Court, like the Juvenile Court, is part of the judicial branch of government. And it's serious. And it's not a game. So when people come to the probate court, just like they come to any other court, they're there because they have to be there.
Right.
Not because it's a fun trip. The Probate and Family Court is unique because we handle every issue that will affect your life, your family's life, your brother's life, your mother's life. From, as Judge Joseph Land has always said, from birth to death. We handle adoptions, we handle paternities, we handle custody arrangements.
Marriages, divorces, all that stuff?
Marriages, divorces, then estate administration. One of the issues that's very prevalent today with a changing, evolving society is guardianships and conservatorships. As our adult population lives longer, there's more of a need for their care. With extended families, there are many, many occasions where young children need guardians, their aunt or their grandmother. So the court is a very, very busy court. It's a very populated court. We are challenged each and every day because many people do not have a lawyer. Many people who come to the court can't afford a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And unlike in criminal cases where you are appointed a lawyer if you can't afford one, you don't necessarily get free representation in a civil case in the probate and family court. So that's a challenge.
I remember I had an occasion to go to the office of the probate clerk a few times, pulling my own divorce decree and stuff like that. And you're absolutely right. At the time, I couldn't afford a representation, and I did a lot of stuff on my own.
Right. Now, I practiced law. I've been a lawyer for a while, since 1982. And when I started, mostly everybody who came to the probate and family court was represented by legal counsel. Over the past 15 years, going forward, fewer and fewer people have lawyers, and it's a challenge to the staff because think about going to the dentist, and you say to your dentist, you know what, I think I could fill that cavity myself. Can you just show me how?
Yeah.
Well, that's sort of what it's like when someone comes to the counter and say, I want to get divorced, or I want to adopt this child, or I need guardianship of my nephew, or my mother died or my grandmother died, I want to do that estate.
Right.
It's a complicated legal process, and I think in order for somebody to be the register of the court, I think you need that knowledge, that experience, that professionalism to understand the needs of the people who use that court.
Right, right. I remember going there and and probably doing the same thing that you're talking about, asking for
I
guidance.
remember you, John.
Asking for guidance from the people who are handing me copies of
Right,
forms and stuff.
right,
Oh, what do I fill
right,
in here, or what do I
right.
fill in? And they really, they couldn't really help me all that much. They certainly couldn't give me legal advice, and that, so it's difficult. I understand what you're saying.
So our court has evolved over the course of time, and as a practicing lawyer, sometimes, lawyers, just like anyone with their own business, want to make a living. They try to make a living. So when they see more and more people being represented by no one, really by themselves, that's why they call pro se litigants, it's challenging for everybody. So we moved into the new courthouse in 2007, so we had a lot of changes that we had to make. We had a lot of challenges. We had a lot of logistical challenges. I'll talk about the courthouse as we go on in the conversation, but it's been an exciting 12 years. It's been a challenging 12 years.
Well, one thing that I remember from my trips to there, a lot of paper. You have a lot of paper records. Are you digitizing any of that stuff these days?
We are digitizing a lot of stuff. That's one of the great things that I think I've been doing and my colleagues have been doing within the structure of the entire trial court. Is I was on the initial scanning committee because we felt back years ago the proper way to do things as we get computerized is to be able to have someone come in and file a document and e-file it.
Sure. And
have a scanner. I mean, you go to the Stop and Shop, or you go to any grocery store, you go to CVS, and everything's scanned.
Right.
But we said, why not us?
Right.
Well, unfortunately, the trial court isn't as advanced as technologically as we would like it to be, for a lot of reasons, money reasons, and it's a high price for the entire trial court. It's not just a probate and family court.
Sure, and the vaults. I mean, you have vaults and vaults and vaults.
I'll tell you that. Wait till you hear this story when I tell you in a little while. But you're 100% right. So we're in the process of scanning all our documents, and one of the things you'll see on my website, steveabraham.com and the Worcester ProbateCourt.com, two separate websites, one for work and one for the campaign, is that we are starting a pilot program to do e-filing. The federal courts do e-filing, but the federal government has a lot more money than the state government, they're more advanced. But we will be doing that, and I think that's something that will happen over the next couple of years. The paper is crazy.
Sure, and not only that, it's prone to loss, fire. Recently, I found out that I could join a club in Natick that's got they have a nice arrangement. They're on a peninsula out into the middle of a lake in Natick. It's called the Sons of Amvets. And if you're the son or daughter of a veteran, you can join the club. Well, my father served in World War II, so in order to prove that I was a member, I had to get a copy of his discharge papers. I contacted the National Archives and asked for DD DD 214 or something. I contacted them and asked for a copy. They said it was lost in a fire.
Really?
Yeah, back in the 70s there was a fire in the archives, and apparently they couldn't put their hands on his discharge papers, so I wasn't able to get them. Absolutely, they're prone to loss, they're prone to fire, and it's the right thing to do is to digitize as much as possible.
When we were in the old courthouse on Main Street, there was no security. Anybody can go into the file room, look at files, take papers out, take papers in. So we have a secure file room in the new courthouse. Unfortunately, it's in the basement, and the courtrooms are on the second and third floor. So logistically, it was a major problem for us, and that's why I wanted the cases to be at that time scanned.
Sure, they can just be called up on computer and much more efficient that way.
Unfortunately, at the time, again, fiscal crisis, and we had a hiring freeze for 5 years. So everything, when it rains, it pours.
Right.
But what we have done, and we've done a great job at it, is everything that comes into the registry, everything that comes into my office, gets docketed and scanned. So if you filed for a divorce 5 years ago, or if you had an estate and the file disappeared, you can look on that computer and you can see
you
those
can still
documents.
Find the file. You can reprint it if you need to.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And we're getting better at that. We're getting better at that.
Sure. So tell me some of the duties of the Register of Probate then.
Where would you like me to start?
Well, at the beginning.
That's probably usually a pretty good place. When someone calls me and I say hello, and they say, hello? I said, well, you don't want me to say goodbye, do you? I mean, I just answered the phone. Because, you know, people have my phone, it goes right to my desk.
Yep, yep.
Don't have a secretary.
Okay.
I am the secretary and, you know, chief bottle washer, but I have some very, very able assistants. The Register of Probate by statute is technically the keeper of records. Let me give you a typical example of how a case starts and ends. Mm-hmm. Most people think of the probate court sometimes as a divorce court, even though it's a lot of other things. But let's talk a typical divorce case. Somebody comes in and has to file a complaint for divorce. That's filed. It's my responsibility to take that paperwork, file it, docket it. We scan it now so that it's available in digital form. Once those papers are processed, a summons is issued. My office issues a summons to the person that files the petition or the complaint with what's called a tracking order. In our case, it's tracked on a time basis, and that's another thing that we've done. We've really improved that. Certain cases in the old days used to go on forever, forever and ever and ever, and in divorce cases they can last up to 23 years because there are obligations of custodial parents to pay support, pay educational expenses up until the child is possibly 23 years old. So our files don't go away, which is another reason for the need of scanning and digitizing all this stuff. So we're, you know, we've been fighting that fight for a while, and it's working, quite frankly. So that summons gets issued. The defendant then has to file an answer. That answer comes into our court. We accept it. We make sure it's accurate. We docket it. We scan it. And we create a paper file. We also have the digital file.
Right.
And then we are responsible for that file, those pleadings in that file. And so that when the case ultimately gets, you know, to a court, or to a hearing, we pull that case. We make sure the case gets to the judge's lobby. The case is on a list that we prepare. And so we are responsible for the administration of the day-to-day operation of that court.
Okay.
And you know, that's just one aspect of you know, my oversight. Yeah. So picking a good team is crucial.
And clearly it's important that everything be included, that the judge get a full picture when it's time for that hearing, or even if it's the clerk magistrate, whoever has to do any kind of adjudication here is going to have to get a clear picture, and the very vital service that you're providing.
The probate and family court does not have jury trials. So unlike some of the other courts, you were saying that you were called to jury duty the other day.
Right, yeah, last Monday I was in your building for jury duty. Yep.
And it's like the Taj Mahal, isn't that building?
Oh, it's beautiful, yeah, it's really well done. Head and shoulders above the old building. Not that the old building,
there were no live animals running around the new building either, so it's pretty good.
The old building had a certain majesty to it, being as old as it was. It did have, you know, with the pillars out front and everything. It did have quite the nice look to it. But the new building is beautiful. It really
what was nice about the old building is that everybody would see everybody. You know, when I was practicing, we'd be able to go to the cafeteria. We settled a lot of cases in the hallway down in the cafeteria. The new building, as you see, is beautiful. But it's a little more sterile.
Right.
And no matter where you go in that courthouse, you need a pass.
Right. You
know, you walk through machines to make sure that you're not carrying a gun. You have to take your belt off. So everything. But I guess that's our society today.
It is, yeah. The old building had a certain, I can't even really describe it, but just you could tell that it had been built upon. You know, this section was clearly added somewhere after the time that the building was built. You could see, you know, the different architecture and stuff. It had a character to it that was all its own. What's it being used for now? Is it in use for some other purpose?
I understand that there's a nice family of pigeons that are.
Oh, really?
That
have taken residence.
DCAM, I guess, has taken ownership of it.
Okay. That's DCAM is the Department of
Capital and Asset Management for the Commonwealth.
Yep.
There was talk that there was a law school that maybe would have gone in there. They would knock down the back part and use the front part. Initially, before they built the new courthouse, one of the things that I wanted to do, because I was on an initial committee, I wanted to stay there with the Registry of Deeds.
Oh, okay.
Because a lot of times the Registry of the Deeds and the probate court work hand in hand.
Yeah, kind of mesh, yeah.
Could have refurbished that building, could have then kept the law library in the courthouse. So there are a lot of different proposals, but the new theme was, you know, the large community-based courthouses, so that all the courts
Are all in one place.
Departments would be in one place.
Yep.
The disadvantage to that is that now everybody from around the county, and it's the Worcester County Probate and Family Court. We don't, not we don't, but the judges don't travel to other locales because it's a nice, comfortable building. Mm-hmm. You know,
yep.
that they don't want to leave sometimes.
Right, right.
You know,
yeah.
That's the downside. But it's a beautiful building, and it gives you the sense of justice when you walk in.
Yeah.
You know, in the old courthouse, you'd walk in and the security was, you got a gun? Now at least you have to walk through a metal detector, you know?
Yes, yeah. In fact, I did the metal detector thing when I was there. One thing I didn't realize, I walked in there, I had my little notebook computer with me, I had my cell phone with me, and I saw the sign saying you can't have any of that stuff in the courthouse. I went back out to my truck and dropped everything off.
Very, very good pointer for your guests, whoever's watching this. If you're going to the courthouse, leave the phone in the car.
Leave the phone in the car.
You can deposit it across the street at the constable or the sheriff's office, but good advice, leave the phone in the car.
Right. And what I didn't realize was that I could have actually brought my phone with me to the jury room. That was the one place where it's allowed, is in the jury selection room when you're, you know.
Right.
So I could have been, you know, at least reading something online or whatever
right.
on my phone during the time that I was there. But yeah, absolutely, if you have to go to the courthouse for any reason, leave the phone
leave the phone in the car. One of the other things that I do and you know, we do is you know, the personnel issues. You know, my employees are, most of my employees are in a union, and so we deal with the union and union issues. Fortunately, that's gone pretty well over the course of time, and I think, you know, my staff, and I don't want to say my employees because I feel I work with them and they work with me, because it is a team. You know, ultimately the buck stops with me. Ultimately, you have to take responsibility, good or bad, but you know, when you're the manager, whether it's the Red Sox or the Patriots, when things go good, you don't get credit. When things go bad, you get blamed. So, you know, that's part of the deal, and that's okay. Yep. I'd rather see the employees get the credit because that's where it belongs.
Well, sure, that's where really the work is getting done, right? I mean, you know,
that's where the work is getting done.
Those are the people in the trenches. It's like the front lines,
in the trenches,
right? Yeah.
And people who say, you know, the generals in Boston should be calling the shots. They've never been on the front line.
Right.
You know.
So it appears that you've brought me a gift here tonight. And I want to hold this up for the camera.
Well, this is very, very valuable too. You know, I fortunately I have a few left. Yeah, the Steve Abraham bumper sticker, window sticker.
And this seems to have something of a Red Sox motif to it. Steve Abraham, those letters look familiar.
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny. I tweaked it a little bit because my oldest son Brian, who was with the Blue Jays for 5 or 6 years, came over to the Red Sox with John Farrell last year.
Really? Oh, that's awesome.
And so we saw Game 6. We were in the clubhouse after Game 6. We were on the field after Game 6. My entire family and Brian's mom and his brothers and sister and Brian's wife, and it was just an unbelievable night.
That's great.
So I thought it would be sort of a nice touch.
Sure.
And I like it, actually.
Yep, that'll go nicely on my tailgate. I don't know if you've ever seen my tailgate, but I'm well known for...
Well, you can't see the tailgate. You can see all the bumper stickers, but you can't see the tailgate.
Exactly. Yeah. I've got everybody on there. I lost my Joe Kennedy sticker when I had to replace my bumper. I got hit from behind on Labor Day. It's coming home from Connecticut on Labor Day. All accidents happen, or 90% of accidents happen within 5 miles of the home.
Yeah.
I drove 200 miles to Connecticut and back. A quarter of a mile from my house, someone hit me from behind when I stopped to turn left, and traffic was coming from the other direction. So of course you get in accidents within 5 miles of the home.
It looks like you stayed healthy, so that's
I did. Yes. I try to keep my health up. But absolutely, I've got a spot on my
I think you should. That would look good.
That'll fill it. It'll fill a spot where a bumper sticker recently peeled away. The probate court website that we developed several years ago, at no cost to anyone but me, which is okay. It is an interactive website that people can go and get forms. WorcesterProbate.com. It's been very helpful. Our other website, the SteveAbraham.com website, is our campaign website, and that's the proud logo that's in front. So, excellent.
Yeah, you'll see the now if they continue to play like they play, the Red Sox will be okay. If they have a year like last year, I might have to change the logo to the Yankees logo. Just kidding.
Well, we wouldn't want that to happen. That would be
a
big secret. I'm actually a Yankees fan. I grew up in Connecticut, where there's both Red Sox and Yankees fans. And at the time, when I was about 7 or 8 years old or so, both of my older brothers were Red Sox fans.
Right.
What's a 7-year-old going to do in a
course.
situation like that?
Fight his brothers.
Yeah, I became a Yankees fan, and I've been a Yankees fan ever since.
Well,
but I'm a fan, and I watch the games. In fact, I'm going to the game next Wednesday.
Are you?
Yeah, the Yankees will be in town Wednesday.
Have you been to the new stadium?
The new Yankee Stadium,
Yes.
no, but I made sure to get to the old Yankee Stadium a couple of times before they took it down. My daughter as well wanted to see the old Yankee Stadium.
Beautiful.
We haven't been to the new one. Yeah, the new one is beautiful.
Both of them are beautiful.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I didn't understand why they tore the old one down, but when you get to the new one, you could sort of see.
The old one was old.
Yeah, you could
It
see.
really was. Yeah.
You know, as an aside, Brian said the most excited he ever was when he went to Yankee Stadium for the first time in the dugout.
Wow.
He got announced,
Yeah.
you know, at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's
Class
history
organization.
there. Yeah.
And you know, the class organization. You can hate them all you want, but guess what?
Yeah, they win
Class
games.
organization.
Yeah. They do.
You know?
They do win some games. They're dedicated to one thing: win the World Series.
That is their goal.
Every year, that's what they
That
want
is
to
their
do.
goal.
Yep. So let's get back to talking a little bit
Sure.
about the register of probate. You're not facing a primary
Correct.
this time around. There doesn't seem to be anybody
Correct.
taking papers to run against you.
Well, I think, you know, and I remember running, you know, 12 years ago, and running as a professional. I alluded to that earlier in the show.
Mm-hmm.
People expect that if somebody's running a court, the person running that court should, number one, have some experience in that court,
Mm-hmm.
some experience running an office, some experience and knowledge about the legal system. And so I take that challenge, I take that responsibility seriously. That said, my responsibility is to raise the bar, is to make sure that the staff understands how important it is to the people who use that court, that we are part of the judicial branch of government. Sometimes we forget that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people look at the court system because it's all bad as an administrative agency. We are actually the judicial branch of government, the third branch of government.
Sure.
And our system is not perfect, but it's pretty good.
It is pretty good. I'll tell you, I've always been happy with the service that I've received whenever I needed help or whenever I needed something. It really has been just a positive experience for me.
And I think, you know, my perspective has been, you know, even I was a Worcester City Councilor for, you know, a couple of terms, that you represent everybody. You know, when someone comes to that court, whatever my political affiliation is, and it's obviously a Democratic affiliation, when they come to that court and they need you, you see the person.
Right.
And I think that's a reputation that I'm happy to have. And so I think that's one of the reasons why, you know, I have garnered the support of a lot of different people.
So you alluded a little bit to some of your background. You were a city councilor. Earlier you talked about that you've been a lawyer since 1982.
Yeah,
tell us some more about your background.
Sure,
And,
sure.
What kind of a legal practice did you have? What kind of issues did you work on as a city councilor?
Sure. I grew up in Worcester, Grafton Hill neighborhood. All great people came from Grafton Hill and Worcester. You know, Milford has its neighborhoods too.
Sure,
You know, I
sure.
mean, all the little towns, you know, they have their neighborhoods. Worcester is really a city with a small town flavor.
Mm-hmm.
You went to Worcester Public Schools, then went to Holy Name High School, went to the College of the Holy Cross.
Okay.
Probably couldn't get in now, but I got in then. And then went to
That's a Jesuit school, right?
That's a
The Holy
Jesuit
Cross?
school.
Yep.
Went to the University of Connecticut School of Law
Okay.
after that, and started my law practice after I graduated from law school. Went to work with a firm by the name of Driscoll, Keenan and Keenan, and then became a partner in that firm. Then a partner in the firm of Zarrow, Giorgioline, and Abraham. A lot of the people out of that firm became judges. I chose not to be.
Okay.
I went to a different direction.
Yep.
Opened up my own business, so I understand what it's like to run your own business. When you
Sure.
sign, you know, when you sign your check on the front as opposed to just the back,
Right.
it's a little different.
It's a little different.
You know,
It
people
sure
used to
is.
say, "Oh, you know, you get a lot." Pressure is on Thursday night when you don't have enough money for payroll. That's
Right, that's pressure, right.
That's pressure. You
Right.
know, trying to sink a 3-foot putt isn't that bad of a deal. You know?
So if you went to University of Connecticut Law School, does that mean you were excited for the Huskies to win the
you know what?
championship?
One of my colleagues, and I'll mention her, So she'll be happy to know I mentioned her name, Gina DeRossi. She's a PC graduate. She wasn't happy that UConn won, but I was. Yeah, it was a great for both teams, girls and boys.
Yeah,
I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, that's only the second time that's happened in NCAA history, and both times it's been UConn that did it.
Yeah,
so
pretty neat.
Yeah, I went to UConn myself.
Oh, you did?
Yes, that's why I'm a big fan
So you're
of
Husky.
the Huskies. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah,
I am Husky too. So
I couldn't tell. It must be the camera, John.
It's got to be. The camera adds 150 pounds.
Absolutely, I've said that before. But you know, I did go to one game, one UConn boys game this year, and it was against Florida.
Really?
Saw the game when they won at the buzzer.
Where they
won at the buzzer.
Won with the buzzer beater.
Pretty
That's
neat.
awesome.
Pretty neat. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So, yeah, and I practiced law for about 20 years. I had a general practice. You know, when you're from Worcester, you know, you develop your practice. People don't come to you for, you know, everything. Everyone has different problems, so you learn. And I think one of the advantages of that I have as the register is I have practiced in Milford District Court, and Uxbridge District Court, and Dudley District Court, you know, and Spencer District Court, and you know, East Brookfield. So I've been around the county, and I understand in Fitchburg District Court. So so you understand what the county is like, because it's a big county, 60 cities and towns.
You know, and speaking of jury duty, I actually served jury duty one time in Longmeadow.
Really?
That court all the way across the county. I had to leave my house at like 5:45 in the morning in order to be there on time.
Right.
Come to find out afterwards, I could have asked to be relocated for duty to Worcester, where it would be a lot more convenient for me. At the time, I was living on Harding Street in Milford. I could have walked to the Milford courthouse.
Right.
But of course, they don't want you to serve that close to home, because of the chance that you'd be sitting on a jury where you'd know somebody.
You know everybody.
Yeah, where you'd know either a witness or the defendant or somebody, or you know, the prosecutor or the defense attorney. You would know somebody involved in the case, and therefore couldn't serve.
Right.
So. Yeah, I came this close in my last jury service to actually serving on a jury, but I got excused by the prosecutor. The prosecutor, for some reason, decided.
You look like an honest guy to me, too, John.
I think I could have been the foreman of the jury.
I think you could have been, too.
So.
Yeah, speaking of that, you know, my high school friend, we kid each other all the time. Joe Early, the DA, you know, has done some great work out in this area. He's had some very, very tough cases.
Yeah.
You know, over the past several weeks, you know, you've read about the poor kid who they found on 190.
Yeah, I heard about that on NPR this afternoon. That's a tragedy. It really is.
And
that whole situation.
You know, Joe, myself, Dennis McManus, who's the clerk of courts. I think having a lawyer in those positions. And understand you don't necessarily have to be a lawyer to run for elected office sometimes. But I think having that experience, having those qualifications, gives you the opportunity to not just manage, but to pick your staff carefully and see and understand the needs of the litigants and the lawyers. Because if the lawyers aren't happy, then it's going to slow down and bog down the system too. So it's a balance that you have to find between making sure the lawyers' practices are facilitated and providing service to the pro se litigants who are financially disadvantaged. And let me tell you something. There are a lot of financially disadvantaged pro se litigants.
Sure. So
you know,
there's an awful lot of that out there.
I think
there's a lot of hardship these days.
There's a lot of it's hard.
Yeah.
One of the good things, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but we are the hub. You know, the courthouse is the hub for people who have legal issues. They come to the probate and family court because they have an issue. You know, they become a new father or a new mother, and they don't know where the other parent is, or they've been abused. You know, we handle, you know, abuse prevention audits.
Sure.
So domestic violence is a major part of our operation, domestic violence prevention. And you know, we've been fortunate to have a great staff that cares, and I think. If this is my philosophy about management. A good manager will influence his staff and his team so that they take on the personality of that manager. Whether it's the Patriots and Bill Belichick, or the Red Sox and John Farrell, you know, or the Celtics and Doc Rivers, you know, when he coached. If the manager or the boss or the register doesn't care about what he does, doesn't have the knowledge of the system and the process and the litigants, the staff is going to feel that they don't need to care either.
Right, that they have no skin in the game and they don't need to care
but
either.
But when you have some skin in the game and you're invested, your staff gets invested.
Yep.
And I'm very, very proud of our people. They care about the people that come to their court. You know, they have their bad days.
Yep. Oh, anybody's
just like
going
we
to.
all do.
Sure.
But love our staff. You know, it really is like a family. Mm-hmm. We fight like a family. You know, we laugh like a family.
Yep.
You know, but couldn't do it without them. And I really want to give them a plug because they've been great.
That's terrific. That's terrific. So it's steveabraham.com where people can find out more about
steveabraham.com. We have the homepage. I give you a little, you know, I don't want to say history lesson, but my philosophy about our court and about myself and what I believe we need to do. Mm-hmm. Like any organization, you need to be innovative. You can't stay stagnant. The society changes, people's needs change, and I think we have to change with those needs.
Absolutely.
And so I think, you know, being innovative is important, being fresh-minded, being well-informed, and being open-minded, too.
Yep.
You know, sometimes it's easy when you're the boss to know that your decision is final not to listen, but I think the best leaders are the ones who are secure in themselves, so they want the best people around them.
Sure, I don't
want someone saying, yes, you're right, Steve, all the time. Yeah. I mean, I usually am always right, but that's besides the point.
Well, the expression goes something like, you have two ears and one mouth for a reason.
Exactly.
You should listen more and speak less.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So it's about making informed decisions and moving forward. So going forward, we have some, you know, great ideas. We'd like to expand. You know, one of the disadvantages of being in this new courthouse is, you know, back even when I practiced and even when I first started as the register, the judges would have different sessions in different parts of the county. And so if the people couldn't come to the court would go to them. Mm-hmm. I believe that's an important philosophy to have. Access to justice is crucial. There are people, whether they're in Milford or Uxbridge or Fitchburg or Leominster or Westminster, you know, or Barry, there's not a lot of public transportation.
Right.
To get
and the county is huge.
It's huge.
It's enormous.
You know,
really
and
is.
so people can't get there from here. So you know, we're trying to, you know, we've made great inroads in opening up a satellite office in Fitchburg. Again, at no cost. You know, one of the disadvantages to being in the court system is it is a bureaucracy. Sure. And everyone needs to know how much you're paying and what, you know, how come. So we've created a memorandum of understanding where we're going to be able to use the Registry of Deeds in Fitchburg, not have to pay rent, but provide a service to the public. And, you know, I think that's going to be the beginning of this courthouse going out to the people.
Excellent.
I think it's a really good thing.
Yeah,
it's a really good thing.
That really is. That's an excellent idea.
I mean, you know, I have friends who, you know, in the Oxford District Court and the Milford District Court, we have great judges, great assistant DAs, you know, great staff. But we don't have a presence in the probate court because, number one, there's not a lot of room. Mm-hmm. And these courts weren't created for pro se litigants. They were created with the understanding everyone was going to come into court
with a lawyer,
with Perry Mason at their side. You know?
Or at least Matlock.
At least Matlock. Yeah. Showing my age now. But that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay that I'm a little older. I mean, so listen, I turned 35 yesterday. What can I tell you?
I was 29 just last Monday.
You know what? Happy birthday.
My 21-year-old daughter doesn't understand how that works, but, you know.
Speaking of 21-year-old daughters, I have 4 children, if you don't mind me.
Oh, no, please.
Digressing from
Yeah, absolutely.
Brian, who's 29, and he's a great wife, Natalie. Met her in Canada when he was with the Blue Jays. And they have a new son, Logan, you know, our grandson. And first time being a grandfather, it's really amazing. It's an amazing thing. You don't think you could get better than having kids, but it's better.
Sure, because you can send them home.
Because you can send them home. Matt, my son Matt, you know, played in the minor leagues for a couple of years. He's 27, working down in Taunton. My daughter Julie is 25. She's a nurse, registered nurse. Born on St. Patrick's Day, by the way, John.
Great.
The only curse that I have. But she's great. And my youngest boy is a junior at Eckerd College, just finishing his junior year down at Eckerd College in Florida, playing baseball. And
good for him.
Yeah. So
Speaking of St. Patrick's Day, we did see you at our Greater Blackstone Valley Dems St. Patrick's Day breakfast, our first annual breakfast.
Let me tell you, your director, Brett,
Yep.
what a job he did with that food.
I'm telling you, he's great, isn't he?
I didn't recognize him without that big chef hat on, but I went over to him that day and I said, I'd like to have a card because he made food that was.
Oh, it was out of the store.
I know you don't eat much, but I mean, I got to tell you something. I had a few helpings that day.
I think I did too. In fact, I brought a plate about yay big
Really?
home with me.
Yeah, no, that was a great event, by the way.
It really was, yeah.
It was a great event because, number one, it was friendly. And there were people from different areas who maybe don't see each other from time to time. You know, we see our family sometimes at wakes and funerals. It was nice to see people from around the area.
Right, right.
You know, from around the valley in one place.
Yeah. You know, Diane Sachs was there, and she recently passed away. Can you believe that?
I saw her there.
Yeah, that's the last time I saw her.
I saw her there, and she was moving. She was going down south, and then that's when she passed.
So certainly condolences out to Diane's family.
Right.
It was a tragedy to see her go so young.
Tragedy,
Yeah.
tragedy. You know, what a worker. What
Yeah,
a person.
tireless. Yeah, she was really awesome. So she'll be missed, certainly. But that was a good event. We had, what, about 125 people there?
Yeah, that was,
and,
that was fun. You know, some of the speeches were great.
Yep.
And it's always good to hear the people speak, I think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Candidates. And, you know, if you think about it, I mean, there we were, right? And you have people who are running for governor.
Yeah.
Who someday may very well will be the governor.
Sure.
And they're talking to us in a
friendly, intimate environment. Yeah.
Intimate setting.
Yeah.
And plus, I like the location.
Yeah,
I think the spot was great.
Yeah, it's, right in Uxbridge, nice and centrally located. People were able to get there. We had Martha Coakley, we had Jim McGovern,
right.
We had Joe Avalone, we had James Marina DeRosa,
right.
People running
right.
for high office in the
right.
state. It was really good to have such a great turnout.
I think I was one of the last speakers, and because the parade with the St. Patrick's Day parade that day it was a Sunday, was in Worcester, but the day before was our St. Patrick's Day breakfast in Worcester. They had the day before.
Yep.
And I remember saying, you know, and it's sort of my stump speech, but I say, you know, the Register of Probate's position, you know, I'm last speaking because it's not a very sexy position, or at least it wasn't until I got elected 12 years ago. That's, you know, so that's my line, and I'm sticking to it.
Exactly. I wouldn't stray from that line.
It was a fun morning. It was good to see a lot of people. Got to meet some people. Actually, got to reconnect with some people that you don't always see.
Right. And I found out that Marty Green was running for state rep.
I
had no idea that he was running for state rep.
Right.
Yeah. So it was great to learn that and great to find that out.
You know, it's one of the great things about being on the ballot. One of the great things about being elected. At least I found this out first when I ran for city council. Is you meet people. Number one, you never ordinarily meet, but you realize why we are such a great community. Why we're because we have great people in this country.
Yeah.
I mean, we have great people in the community. And I remember running, just a quick story. It's probably a boring story, but I'm going to tell you the story anyway. I'm not that exciting of a guy. I was with one of my sons. I think it was with Matt. And it was it was getting dark, and we were knocking on doors, you know, for the city council race. And you can do that when you're running in a town or a city. You can't necessarily knock on everybody's door in 60 cities and towns.
Sure.
But I said, Matt, there's one more, Dad. Come on, Dad. I said, Matt, let's go. One more, we're going to go to that house. He said, all right. So we bring him up, knock on the door. This guy, Nate Menkow, he invited us in, older guy. He was the person, as it turned out, who had this amazing veterans collection in his home. And he turned out to be an icon in Worcester with the veterans groups.
With the veterans community.
And if I hadn't gone to that house, I would have never met him. So on Veterans Day, when he was honored, you know, at the middle school that year, I was able to go to him and say, hey, Mr. Menka, hi, Steve, how you doing? You know, but you don't.
You never know.
Realize
you
that.
never know whose door.
And
you're
those guys,
knock on.
those veterans, I'm convinced. You know, knocking on people's doors, and they would tell you matter of factly how they were in a bomber in World War II.
Yeah.
Not that generation, your father's generation. My father was in the Korean War, but that generation, they didn't speak a lot about themselves.
No. Yeah.
I mean, amazing.
Yeah. My dad was an amazing figure. He really was. He was in the 348th Engineers. They landed on the beaches at Normandy. He told me that really the only reason he made it through was because he was in one of the later waves. The first couple of waves were
Everybody
just
gone.
wiped out. Yeah, just wiped out on the beach. And being an engineer, you remember The Longest Day or
Sure.
Saving Private Ryan,
Sure.
when the
Sure.
colonel was on the
Sure.
beach yelling, "Get me engineers
Yeah.
up here with their
Yeah.
Bangalore
Right.
torpedoes."
Right.
That was my
him.
dad. Yeah, that was my dad. He was an amazing man, fearless, absolutely fearless. He got through World War II.
How old was he when he was there?
He was, let's see, when he joined up, he was 23. So he joined up.
And he was, so that's old.
Yeah,
that's
he
old for
he
them.
joined up in 42. Yeah, he was a tech sergeant, of course, because he was old.
It's amazing. I mean, old for the,
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they were all 18-year-olds. Yeah.
I sometimes say, I worked in a federal building in high school and in a couple of years in college, sweeping the floors and doing all that stuff, after hours. And that the draft was still going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'd have to clean the draft board. And you get scared, we're going to really get drafted and go into the service. And
Sure.
then they stopped the draft.
Yeah.
And I think, I talked to my friend Fran Russell about this a lot. It's one of the few regrets, not being in a war, not having to fight, but sometimes I think it would be good for our children's generation, and the generations to come, to spend a couple of months in basic training and learning that respect again.
Sure.
And sometimes now the closer they get to playing Army is going on playing video games as
Right.
if it's not real.
Right.
Like killing somebody is
Yeah,
callous. It's not
callous
that big of
and
a deal.
Yeah.
And I that bothers to me for some reson. I don't know why that bothers me, but it does.
Right. He had some amazing experiences in World War II.
I can only imagine.
He told me about some of them, but
And some of them, I
like
bet
you
he
say-
never told you.
Oh yeah.
Wouldn't tell you.
Yeah, he didn't. He didn't expand on a lot of stuff. So basically that's just the way they were. They kept it to themselves.
Even those
and-
guys who were in
yeah.
Vietnam, they come back, they're treated with such disdain and disrespect, and they went through things that,
Right.
just amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing,
I think that my dad had PTSD, but of course in those days they didn't.
They didn't know what it was.
They didn't talk about it. They
Right.
didn't. They didn't
Right.
think it was anything.
Sure.
But yeah, he was just an amazing man, and I miss him. He passed in 1991, and I miss him to this day. Occasionally I dream about him. It's kind of funny.
I had to hear about my father. My father died 10 years ago this August, and my mother's still alive. But you're right. You miss him. Sometimes it's like he's there.
Yeah.
Sometimes I say to myself, what would my father do? In these circumstances.
Yeah.
I ask that question, and I think one of the reasons why I think I enjoy my job so much is because you have an opportunity. I have an opportunity to help
Right.
people
To help people,
in
to
a
help
real
families.
way. I think that's why some of our elected officials that we have in democratic positions are so good at what they do.
Yeah.
Because they care.
Yeah, because they're empathetic.
It's not a job.
We have
It's-
empathy for.
We can empathize.
Yeah.
We want to help. That's why we're in the business in the first place.
Right.
A lot of kids now go to law school because they think they're going to make money and drive a fancy car. I mean, that's not what we went. We thought we were going to be social workers and save the world.
Yeah. Yep.
Both of us are wrong, but we try.
Right.
And I think when you lose that, it's time to move on.
Right.
And so I'm fortunate that I still feel good, still energetic, try to work out every day, and keep up with those kids.
Yeah. Well, with a grandchild now, you're going to have your work cut out for you keeping up, right?
Absolutely.
How old is he? How old is Logan?
Almost 6 months.
Oh, so he's just he'll be toddling around pretty soon.
Absolutely.
Learning to run and
Absolutely.
all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So wow.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
It's pretty neat. So it's all good. It's all good. They're going to be involved this summer. The kids are going to be around. My oldest boy is going to be in. I told him, he said, "What can I do, Dad?" He said, "Why don't you have all the Red Sox over the house? Have a little fundraiser." I said, "Wouldn't it be funny to get a check from Dave Ortiz?"
Yeah.
I wouldn't cash it. I would just keep them.
Sure. I read about there were what's his name in Israel, Moshe Dayan. He was a famous antiquities collector. What he would do, he would go to a shop, and if he wanted something that the shopkeeper had, he would go into the shop and he would write him a check for whatever the item was, say
Right.
$1,000 for
Right.
some bureau or
Right.
something, some antique. He would write him a check for the item, and the shopkeeper would take that check, and instead of cashing it, he would put it in a frame, and he would hang it on the wall behind the register with a price tag of double whatever the face value of
Really?
the check was.
Really? That's pretty funny.
And some American tourist would come in and see Moshe Dayan's signature and say, I'll give you $2,000 for that $1,000 check.
Right.
Nobody, of course, would ever cash the checks. And so Moshe Dayan got his antiquities collection for free. Because
I think that's how they started the conflict of interest law, right there.
That could very well be.
No gifts more than $50.
Yeah. So David Ortiz gave you that check. Would you frame that and hang it on your wall?
I think I would. Well, you know, I have in my office, my son Brian gave me for my birthday, and you know, we just had the anniversary of the marathon bombing.
Yes.
But he gave me a framed portrait of Johnny Gomes when he was standing on second base, and it says Sports Illustrated cover said, you know, Boston Strong, and so he signed it, and it was addressed to John Farrell. So it's pretty. That hangs proudly in my in my office.
Sure. And having the anniversary this week, I was watching, of course, the shows that you know, there was that show on ESPN, the E60, about the survivors and stuff.
Right.
And, we tried to do whatever we could back last year to help those people that you know, I made donations to the One Fund, and I made donations on. There was a couple of GoFundMe things going around trying to help people out that, you know, lost limbs and stuff. There was a mother-daughter pair that each lost a leg in the explosion, and so, you know, we tried to do our best. I did some blogging online and stuff, trying to, you know, get some help for them.
I was at an event the other night, and Warren Tolman was talking, and he's from Watertown, and he was saying how those people, you know, the police officers, the SWAT team was in his neighborhood, came to his house, went down the cellar. It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary, you know.
I was listening on NPR today, and they were talking about the guy that found Tsarnaev in his boat. And he said that what the guy did was he walked outside, and he saw like a bloody footprint heading towards his boat. And so he kind of crept up on the boat and figured that someone was in there. So he went in and he called 911 to say, I think the guy that you're looking for is in my boat. And so the 911 operator said, well, you know, are you sure? How are you sure, sir, or whatever? He went back out. And while he had the phone in his hand, he went back out and looked. And the operator was like, get away from him.
I don't think I would have done that. I know what I would have said to the operator. I think I know what you would have said to the operator.
Please send the officer to check.
Yeah. You want to look, you come and look.
Yeah. That was just
it was almost like the day, you know, world stood still for that.
Terrible event. I have friends who every year stand at the finish line. And luckily for them and for me, they didn't do it last year.
Really?
Yeah. Just, you know, I had seen them the Wednesday prior to the marathon, and they both said at that time that they were not planning to go. So when everything happened, I called one of them immediately. I called both of them, but one of them I couldn't get through to. She didn't pick up her phone. I called both of them, and the other one, I called her, and she says, "Oh yeah, I knew about it. I didn't go, but I don't know if Chris went or not."
Really?
And so I kept on trying for like an hour.
There was no cell phone service.
She had a 617 number, and she didn't have service.
Because my son Matt was there, my son Brian was coming out of the game around the same time, so I'm calling and not, you know.
Yeah, it was tough. I finally got through to her, and she was okay. But that was a frantic hour where I thought that perhaps I would lost a friend.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary.
Yeah, that was a scary day, and now we have justice being served.
We have justice being served.
We've got Tsarnaev in prison, and I guess he'll stand trial sooner or later.
I hope he doesn't come to the probate court.
Yeah.
Actually, I hope he does. But no, we're busy every day. We're the second busiest. Worcester Probate and Family Court is the second busiest probate court in the state.
So you handle all of these things for the entire county?
For the entire county.
And how many towns are there in this county?
60.
There's a lot. Yeah.
60.
Yeah. So you've got
a lot of restaurants. A lot of good ones too. But it's a good county.
Yeah.
Good people, and it is funny how you can go to different parts of Worcester County and really feel that you're in a different state.
Sure.
You know, you go to the Brookfields and, you know, friends there, and it's a different way. Yep. You know, but it's all good.
Yeah, each town has their own distinctive kind of flavor and stuff, you know, and I love the classic New England town look with the green with the white church and all that stuff, you know. So many towns have that classic look.
We're lucky to live up here.
We really are.
We're lucky to live up here.
Yeah. It's a beautiful section of the country. Reagan's words notwithstanding, I think he said something like, had the Pilgrims landed in California, New England would still be a wilderness. But
we used to come up all the time because my three boys went to St. John's, and they played Milford, every year. And we'd spend a lot of time, at Pheno Field.
Yep.
With high school and with American Legion. So I spent a lot of time. And then, I played, St. Mary's of Milford was still open.
Okay, yeah.
Back a few years back.
Yeah.
We played them. It's a good place.
Yeah. I was actually reading about baseball the other day. It's like kind of a study of the game, and they were talking about how in every other sport you can have an individual star who really stands out, but within baseball, it's almost like there's just a series of mini contests. It's the batter against the pitcher. Okay, and the batter might manage to get a hit. So if the batter gets a hit, then it's the fielder against the ball. And so there's there's all these little smaller contests within the game, and it's unlike any other sport from that perspective. Baseball.
Well, I think I'm probably a baseball. I'm not a snob, but I think I'm probably a baseball snob. And so, but I could have the conversation with you because you appreciate that. Yeah. But if you're an average person watching the game, and I sometimes get bored too. Sometimes these games go too long.
Oh yeah,
I mean too long.
I've often said there's nothing better for a nap on a Saturday afternoon than watching a ball game.
I mean, and then the replays. I mean, enough's enough. But you're the game within the game, and it's interesting to watch. At least I find those individual battles.
Yeah.
The pitcher versus the runner who has to steal this base.
Sure.
It's exciting.
Or the fielder who makes an error and they put it on the scoreboard.
Well, you're watching it on the big screen.
Yeah.
You're all alone right there.
Yeah.
You're all alone right there when the ball is.
Yeah. It's an amazing sport. It really is.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah, I love baseball. I tried to play when I was a kid. I wasn't coordinated enough for it, so couldn't put the round bat on the round ball.
Not an easy thing to do.
Not an easy thing to do at all. Yeah.
I feel your pain. I feel your pain. But hopefully they'll be as successful this year, and as they were last year. And,
yeah.
I know. I used to tell the kids when they be upset over somebody again. Listen. Nobody's calling you up tomorrow and saying, are you okay, Mikey? Julie, you okay? Are you upset that we lost the game? Now it's all of a sudden, though, it's different when your kid's on the team. Yeah. Now you do sort of take it a little personally.
Right. I did coach baseball when I had kids. My stepson, I coached his team.
Yeah.
We lived in Connecticut at the time. I coached.
Where in Connecticut?
Outside of Waterbury, a little town called Wolcott. We lived there for a couple of years, and I coached his teams there. When we moved back to Milford, he was still playing, but I wasn't any kind of a known quantity within the league here in Milford.
Right.
So all I did was I went to the coach and I said, look, I'll help any way I can. Give me the pitch count book, and I'll do the pitch counts for you.
Right.
Stuff like that. So that so at least I felt that I was involved. I was helping somehow. But I wasn't the known quantity. That there were so many coaches and so many people who were a known quantity to the league that. Well,
Milford's such a great baseball town.
Such a tradition
historically
here.
and a tradition. It's an unbunbelievable baseball town.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, it really is. Milford Townies and the whole bit. But unfortunately, when I get up in the morning, I'm not going to the baseball field. I'm going to 225 Main Street, which I'm happy to do, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things I tell the judges sometimes is, I know I can do your job, but I know you can't do my job, because it requires to be, when you have a robe and you're up there on the bench, you're going to make some tough decisions. And our judges are terrific. They make tough decisions on a daily basis with some very, very difficult emotional things. Then they come to the registry after they come, and so we deal with that emotion. We deal with the anger. We deal with the frustration. We deal with the sadness. And the people at my counter, that I go up to the counter, and these people listen, and it's hard some days. It's hard. Mm-hmm. So a lot of lawyers don't want to practice in our court anymore either, because it is, for that reason, it's challenging.
Yeah.
And your life, somebody's life is in your hands.
Yeah.
That's one thing I don't miss about practicing law. The sleepless nights where you tried a case in front of a judge and it's out of your hands.
Right. Whenever I've had to have any dealings with the court, I always do my best to try and find a way to settle before you get into the court, before you get into that situation. The way that I look at it is, even in the most perfect of worlds, they'll get an accurate picture of what they need to adjudicate on. They can still make a bad decision, even with an accurate picture. Right. It's always best to just try and settle and try to do things as amicably as possible. Is my theory on how to.
Good lawyers, good conciliators, and good mediators. Mm-hmm. The best case is a settled case, and it's just like in life. Yeah. You know, you want to resolve your differences. You want to sit and talk and negotiate and work things out with your friend or your wife or your kid
or your family,
you know,
or
your
whatever family matter you're in front of.
Yeah, you want to try to resolve them. You don't want to go to World War III.
Right.
And so, you know, that is, you're 100% right. And I think our court has, you know, we've expanded, you know, we have a Lawyer for the Day program, we've expanded mediation. Our probation office is great. We have great probation officers who help settle cases. Mm-hmm. And so there was a big focus on mediation and trying to get people together ahead of time, yep, you know, to resolve their differences. And going to trial is the last resort.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and I think that's the way it should be.
So let's we're almost out of time here. We got about 5 minutes left. Yeah, you wouldn't believe it, huh? But an hour flies by.
Boy, you talk a lot. I'll tell you.
So let's talk a little bit more about your website, how people can find out more about your campaign.
All right, steveabraham.com. Let me know if you like the logo and the picture. You know, people make fun of me sometimes. You know, my friends, family, sure, about sometimes about my appearance. So, you know, when we were trying to figure out what pictures we were going to put on the website, you know, because we had a few pictures, and they said, you know, this website, you know, has to be up, you know, in 2014. You understand that, right? Because they thought it would take, but it didn't take long. It didn't take long to get the picture. I just want everyone to know, it didn't take long to get the pictures taken or completed and chosen. So we get a nice website. Let me talk about both websites.
Sure.
If you go to steveabraham.com, there's a link to the Worcester Probate Court website. People who need assistance, whether it's an adoption, whether it's a divorce, whether it's a guardianship, whether it's an estate situation, someone died, go to worcesterprobate.com, follow the links. It'll be very, very helpful to them. Very, very helpful. It's interactive. You'll be able to get some information, and you know, I'm always accessible. You know, at the courthouse, and you know, we're accessible there. My campaign, steveabraham.com. You'll learn a little bit about me. You'll learn a little bit about my family, my past, my educational experience, my professional experience as a lawyer. You know, I teach. I have taught, you know, at several universities in the area. Mm-hmm. Enjoyed that. That keeps me involved. Sure. So I could talk a little more. That's what I do. I miss the courtroom a little bit. Mm-hmm. You know, so I always love when people say, "I'm going to file a grievance." Please file a so no one has, and you know, I'm glad to. You know, I'm not encouraging people to do it, but I don't mind a little fight every once in a while. It's good to keep your blood boiling. Sure. But yeah, steveabraham.com, worcesterprobate.com.
You've been watching All Politics is Local, a production of the Greater Blackstone Valley Democrats. To learn more about the Greater Blackstone Valley Dems, feel free to visit our website at www.gbvdems.org. Tonight's guest was Steve Abraham, and we thank him for being here. Get out and vote this November. Politics only works when we all participate. Good night, everybody.